Well, a man who was arrested after a shooting on a trail in Bangor has now had new charges filed against him.
Justin Grover was first arrested on June 17th while police were investigating a shooting on Talbot Trail. The victim said he'd been shot several times in an unprovoked attack. Grover first faced a charge of possession of firearm by a prohibited person, which is a felony. He was released on bail. Police in Bangor continue to investigate and arrested him again today for elevated aggravated assault. He's now being held at the Penobscot County Jail on $100,000 cash bail. Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Graham Platner today proposed what he is calling a corruption crackdown agenda for Washington.
Phil Hirschkorn joining us live in the studio with those details. Hi, Phil.
Hi, Brian and Amanda. Platner bases some of his reform ideas on, at best, unproven allegations about his opponent, Republican Senator Susan Collins. But Team Collins was ready with a rapid response.
Since he won the Democratic primary 2 weeks ago, Graham Platner has been making a sensational allegation, repeated Thursday in the plaza outside Senator Susan Collins' Portland office.
We must pass the Collins rule. Senators should not be able to funnel money to their spouses.
Platner alleges Collins somehow directed $76 million in federal contracts to a Washington, D.C. firm called Jefferson Consulting Group, where her husband, Tom Daffron, was the chief operating officer from 2006 to 2016.
Tens of millions of dollars of it from agencies that Susan Collins herself oversees. That is not a coincidence. That is a senator using her office to enrich her own household.
It never happened. It's not true. It's a lie.
Steve Abbott is Collins' re-election campaign manager and her longtime Senate office chief of staff.
Susan Collins has not funneled any money to Tom Daffron. That's against the law. That's a criminal activity. He's accusing her of engaging in a criminal activity with no evidence.
Platner's campaign points to a list compiled by searching the USA Spending website, finding contracts awarded to Jefferson Consulting by the Departments of Agriculture, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, State, Interior, and Veterans Affairs. But $55 million came from two contracts from USAID, the Agency of International Development. That's 3/4 of the $76 million. The Collins campaign doesn't dispute the total, but who doled out those funds between 2009 and 2016? Not Congress, but the Obama administration.
Who awarded that contract? Barack Obama. So there's your other co-conspirator. This is absurd. This is a joke.
Hey, Graham, Senator Collins is going to say, because you've been talking about this since primary night, her husband Tom ceased being a lobbyist in 2008, 4 years before they got married, so he's not a lobbyist husband, never was.
I asked Platner how he would reconcile the Collins rebuttal.
We are always told by the system itself that there are plenty of excuses as to why it isn't actually corrupt. Even though, I'm sorry, from down here in the real world, all of us looking up, we see a clearly corrupt system.
The executive branch awards contracts. Congress does not award contracts. Susan Collins has never awarded a contract in her life. Neither has anybody else who's ever worked in the United States Senate.
Now, beyond what Platner's saying about Senator Collins, his other anti-corruption proposals would ban members of Congress and their spouses from buying and selling stocks, and ban former members of Congress from becoming Capitol Hill lobbyists or retired Pentagon officials from becoming defense industry lobbyists. Platner would also require presidents to place all of their financial assets in a blind trust, a common practice before Trump. Brian and Amanda, back to you.
Phil Hirschkorn on the campaign trail once again. Thanks so much, Phil. Well, a federal judge in Boston has now struck down the Trump administration's attempt to require states to submit voter records to the U.S. Postal Service to verify voter identity.
If mail-in ballots did not match those records, the president said the Postal Service would not transport those ballots. The judge ruled that the U.S. Constitution does not grant the executive branch that authority. This is the latest court ruling to hamper efforts by the president to increase federal oversight over elections. Maine is one of 30 states that have refused to share their voting records with the federal government. Maine Secretary of State Shenna Bellows is celebrating this ruling as another win and proof that Maine is in the right.
And to have a judge reaffirm what the states have been saying from the very beginning, that under the Constitution, it's the states not the federal government, that are in charge of elections, and that Trump has no right to prohibit mail voting. So our seniors, our people with disabilities, Mainers who are leading busy lives and they're expecting their absentee ballot by mail and need to return their ballot by mail should feel very good today and excited that, at least for now, our elections are protected in the fall.
Maine Attorney General Aaron Frey released a statement writing in part, quote, "The real threat to secure elections is the president and his administration's relentless and unlawful attempts to interfere and undermine public trust in this essential process," end quote. Both Frey and Bellows said their offices will continue to push back against unlawful attempts of federal oversight as the November election draws nearer. Well, 3 elections from the June 9th primary were sent to be recounted after candidates requested the recounts in close races.
So recounts are done with representatives from each candidate and a Secretary of State's office staffer going through those town by town. Monday, there was a recount for Senate District 30, which confirmed Sophie Warren won by 29 votes. Today, the party primary elections for House Districts 49 and 135 were recounted. Chief Deputy Secretary of State Kate McBrien says the recount process done this week for these legislative elections would be nearly the same if recounts are necessary in November.
And that is just much bigger and takes more time. It's still the same process. We still pick up all the paper ballots and we do it by hand. But if you have to collect the entire state and count the entire state, that's going to take more time.
Today's recount confirmed that Suzanne Anderson won the District 49 Republican primary by 6 votes. And in House District 135, Lisa Pratt is the winner in the Democratic primary by just 18 votes.